Stepmom demanded, pay $700 rent. She doesn't know the house is my secret inheritance from Grandpa. My grandpa's house still smells like his pipe tobacco and old books. It's the only piece of him I have left. And that's where my stepmom chose to deliver her ultimatum. No sympathy, no grace, just a cold, hard number, $700. This is a business now, she told me, not even making eye contact. She thinks she's the new queen of this castle, inheriting everything when she married my dad. But a king's will always beats a queen's ambition. And Grandpa's last will and testament, currently locked in my desk drawer, has a little surprise in it for her. She wants to turn my home into a business. Fine. Let's see how she likes her new landlord.
Hey, store lover. Welcome to the Narrative Hub, Reddit Stories. Believe me, this adventure gets wild, but it's only epic with you. Seriously, you make this possible. Want more stories? Greater adventure? Smash subscribe right now. Smash like. Comment below. Let's go.
The silence in the kitchen was heavier than the grief that had settled over the house for the past 3 months. My stepmom, Joyce Parker, slid a crinkled envelope across the granite countertop. My name, Olivia Taylor, was scrawled on the front in her sharp, aggressive handwriting. "The free ride is over," she said, her voice devoid of any warmth. She was examining her manicure, a deliberate act of dismissal. "Your father and I have discussed it. It's time you learned about real-world responsibilities. $700 a month for rent, in my house. You have 30 days to pay up or get out." My father, Stephen, stood by the stove, stirring a pot of coffee that didn't need stirring. He wouldn't look at me. He'd been a ghost in his own home ever since he married this woman, a shadow controlled by her every whim. She saw me as a tenant, a problem, a loose end from his previous life that needed to be monetized or discarded. I picked up the envelope. I didn't need to open it. I knew what it was. It wasn't the first one. Oh no, it was the 6th. But she didn't know that I knew something far more important. She didn't know about the heavy, leather-bound folder my grandpa gave me the week before he passed, his hand trembling as he made me swear to follow his instructions to the letter. He didn't just leave me his old fishing gear and a lifetime of memories. He left me the deed. She had just demanded rent for a house I owned, for the 6th time. And if you think this story ends with me just showing her the papers, you have no idea what's coming. The real trap was already set. To understand how we got here, you need to know what this house meant to me. I practically grew up in these rooms. After my mom died when I was 12, Grandpa's house became my sanctuary. Dad was drowning in his own grief, working longer hours, emotionally absent. But Grandpa was there. Every weekend, every summer, every holiday. We'd sit on the back porch, him with his pipe, me with my sketchbook, just existing in comfortable silence. "This house has good bones, Livy," he'd tell me, using his nickname for me. "Built in 1947, right after the war. Your great-grandfather and I put up these walls together. Every room has a story, and someday these stories will be yours to tell." I thought he meant metaphorically. I had no idea he meant literally. When Dad started dadding Joyce 2 years ago, Grandpa's easy smile would tighten whenever her name came up. "Be careful of people who see everything as a transaction," he warned me once. "Some folks measure love in dollars and cents. Those are the ones who end up with neither." The wedding was small, rushed. Joyce insisted on a courthouse ceremony followed by an expensive dinner. Her choice, Dad's credit card. I watched him sign the check with a slightly dazed expression, like he wasn't quite sure how he'd gotten there. Joyce's hand was possessive on his arm, her smile sharp as a blade. 6 months later, Grandpa got sick. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. He had maybe 3 months, the doctors said. He made it 2. The week before he died, Grandpa called me to the hospital. Not my dad, just me. He looked so small in that bed, hooked up to machines that beeped and whirred. But his eyes were sharp, focused with the kind of clarity that comes when you know your time is running out. "I need you to listen very carefully, Livy," he rasped, his voice barely above a whisper. "In my study, bottom drawer of the oak desk, there's a leather folder. Behind the false back. You'll know it when you see it." "Grandpa, we don't need to talk about this now." "Yes, we do." His grip on my hand was surprisingly strong. That folder contains the deed to my house. The house is yours, has been for 6 months now. I transferred it to a trust the day after your father married that woman. I felt the world tilt. What? Why didn't you tell Dad? His laugh was bitter, turning into a wet cough. When he recovered, he looked at me with something like sadness. Because your father is under a spell, honey. Love or manipulation, I can't tell anymore. But I can tell you this. She's already spent 2 evenings at my house, measuring rooms, talking about renovations and rental potential where she thought I couldn't hear. She sees my death as a business opportunity. That's horrible. That's reality, and reality requires preparation. He squeezed my hand again. There's a lawyer, James Anderson. You call him after I'm gone. He has instructions. But Livy, and this is important, you don't reveal what you know right away. You wait. You watch. You let her show you exactly who she is. Because once you see that clearly, you'll know exactly what needs to be done. I don't understand. You will, trust me, and trust Mr. Anderson. He's been my friend for 40 years. He'll explain everything. 3 days later, Grandpa passed. I held his hand as he went, and with his last breath, he whispered, "Protect what's yours, Livy, and protect your father from himself." The funeral was a blur, but I remember Joyce, dressed in black Chanel, accepting condolences with practiced grief, while her eyes calculated the value of every floral arrangement. I remember her whispering to someone about estate planning by the casserole table. I remember my father, hollow-eyed and broken, being led around like a child. And I remember finding that folder, exactly where Grandpa said it would be. The leather was worn soft with age, and inside were documents that changed everything. The deed, the trust papers, and something else, a sealed letter addressed to me in Grandpa's handwriting. I didn't read it at the funeral home. I waited until I was alone, in my childhood bedroom at Grandpa's house, the room that Joyce didn't yet know belonged to me. The letter was dated 3 weeks before he died. My dearest Livy, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer, but cancer doesn't negotiate. What I can do is protect you from beyond the grave, and that's exactly what I've done. The house is yours, but more than that, I've built in protections for you and for your father. There's a second inheritance, stocks, bonds, my retirement accounts, about $800,000 in total, that your father is entitled to. But there's a clause. If he allows anyone to force you out of your rightful home, that inheritance gets donated to charity. Every penny. I know my boy. He's weak when it comes to strong women. Your mother was strong in all the right ways, compassionate, fierce when it mattered. This new woman is strong in all the wrong ways. She'll try to push you out. Let her try. Let her show her cards, document everything. Then, when the time is right, you play yours. You're named after your grandmother, Olivia. She was the smartest person I ever knew. You have her mind, her strength. Use it. And remember, the best revenge isn't anger. It's justice served with precision. All my love, Grandpa. I cried until there were no tears left. Then I dried my eyes, folded the letter carefully, and began to plan. Let me take you back. 6 months ago, Joyce started her campaign. It began subtly. Little comments about the electricity bill, passive-aggressive notes about leaving a cup in the sink. Then came the first rent discussion. My dad tried to buffer it, saying it was about contributing. But I saw Joyce's triumphant smirk behind him. That night I cried myself to sleep, clutching the locket Grandpa gave me. I felt cornered, grieving, vulnerable, and now, apparently, a freeloader. The next day, I went to see Mr. James Anderson, my grandpa's lawyer. He was a kind, older man with eyes that had seen everything. He slid a box of tissues across his mahogany desk. "I was wondering when you'd call, Olivia," he said gently. "Your grandfather was a very shrewd man. He saw this coming." That's when he explained the masterstroke. Grandpa hadn't just left me the house. His will was a fortress, built with clauses and consequences. The deed was ironclad, transferred to a trust in my name the moment he passed. But there was more. A second, far more dangerous document. It was a poison pill designed for my father. It stipulated that a separate, substantial inheritance meant for him. Stocks, bonds, a retirement fund that Joyce was practically drooling over. would be immediately voided and donated to charity if he was ever complicit in me being forced out of my rightful home. Your grandfather didn't want to just give you a house, Olivia, Mr. Anderson explained. He wanted to give you the power to reclaim your family, or, if necessary, to dismantle the parts that sought to harm you. The choice of how and when to use this information, that's up to you. He paused, studying me carefully. I advised him against this approach, you know. I told him it could backfire, that it could tear your family apart. But he said your family was already being torn apart, just slowly, and this way at least you'd have the tools to fight back. What do you think I should do? I asked. Honestly, I think you should show them the papers today and be done with it. But your grandfather didn't want that. He wanted you to see clearly who Joyce really is beyond doubt. He wanted your father to see it too. So if you choose to wait to let this play out, I'll support you. But Olivia, be careful. The longer you wait, the harder this becomes emotionally. He was right, but Grandpa was right too. I needed to see the whole picture. So why did I pay? Why did I hand over $700 in cash, month after month, from my savings? Because I wanted to see exactly how far she'd go. An eviction threat is one thing, but I was building a case for something far more severe: fraud. And every crumpled bill I handed her was another brick in the wall I was building around her. The first payment was the hardest. I withdrew the cash from my savings account, money I'd been setting aside for graduate school, and placed it in an envelope. My hands shook as I sealed it. Joyce was waiting in the kitchen, her smile predatory. "Smart girl," she said, taking the envelope without counting it. "You're learning how the real world works." I said nothing, but in my pocket, my phone was recording everything. The next few weeks were a chess match played in silence. Joyce grew bolder with each payment I made. She saw my compliance as weakness, not strategy. She started bringing prospective tenants to view the other upstairs bedroom, whispering loudly about the potential rental income. "This one will fetch at least $850, she'd say to some stranger in the hallway, making sure I could hear. "Once we get the current occupant sorted out, this place is going to be a little gold mine." One day, I came home from my shift at the library to find a couple in their 20s touring my childhood bedroom, my personal space. Joyce stood in the doorway, gesturing expansively. Original hardwood floors, excellent natural light. The current tenant is month to month, very flexible situation. I stood in the hallway, groceries in hand, and caught my father's eye. He was lurking in his own bedroom, watching this humiliation unfold. For a moment, something flickered in his expression, shame, maybe, or recognition. But then Joyce's voice called out, and he retreated like a scolded dog. That night, I upgraded my documentation. I played my part. I was quiet, withdrawn, the perfect victim. But in reality, I was a predator. I installed a small, motion-activated security camera in the living room, disguised as a smoke detector. It captured every single cash transaction, every snide comment, every threat. I started recording our phone conversations, my phone safely in my pocket as she'd call me at my part-time library job to remind me that rent was due. "Just wanted to make sure you remembered," she'd say, her tone saccharine. "I'd hate for there to be any complications with your living situation." I documented everything in a detailed journal, too. Dates, times, exact quotes. Mr. Anderson had told me that in legal matters, contemporaneous notes were powerful evidence, so I became a meticulous chronicler of my own abuse. By month 4, the tension in the house was suffocating. Joyce had stopped pretending to be civil. She'd eat dinner in the dining room while I was explicitly told to eat in my room. "We need privacy," she'd say, though Dad barely spoke during their meals anyway. She started leaving real estate magazines around the house, pages marked with listings for studio apartments. "Just some helpful suggestions," she'd say, "since you're clearly struggling to make ends meet here." The pressure on my dad was immense. I could see the conflict in his eyes. One evening, he caught me in the hallway. "Olivia, honey," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Just try to work with her. She holds all the cards right now." If only you knew, Dad, I thought. She's not holding cards. She's holding a bluff, and I'm holding a royal flush. But what I was about to discover was that Joyce wasn't just bluffing. She was cheating in a way I could never have imagined. My curiosity got the better of me. Where was all this cash going? Joyce wasn't paying down the mortgage because there was no mortgage. Grandpa had paid off the house decades ago. One afternoon, while she was out at one of her business lunches, which I suspected were actually wine-fueled complaining sessions with her equally toxic friends, I let my instincts guide me. I checked her laptop, which she'd carelessly left open in the home office. What I found made my blood run cold. She wasn't just greedy, she was desperate. Spreadsheets filled the screen, all in the red. She had maxed out credit cards in my father's name, at least 6 of them, totaling over $45,000. There were personal loans from predatory lenders, payday loan confirmations, and worst of all, what looked like a pyramid scheme called Lux Life Unlimited. Her inbox was flooded with increasingly angry messages. Threats from creditors, demands from her upline, desperate pleas to her downline who weren't moving enough product. The $700 a month she was extorting from me wasn't going into a savings account. It was a frantic, monthly patch on a sinking ship of debt she had hidden from my father. She wasn't just trying to get rid of me. She was using my grandfather's legacy to finance her own ruin. I took photos of everything. Screenshots, document photos, email threads. Then I dug deeper. I found a hidden folder labeled private that contained her plans for the house. Renovation estimates. Plans to convert it into a multi-unit rental property. An application for a home equity line of credit, which would have been fraud since she didn't own the house. That had thankfully been denied. Most damning of all, I found a draft email to my father, never sent, where she'd written, "Stephen, I need you to understand that Olivia is a drain on our resources and our future. The house is our asset now, and we need to monetize it properly. If she won't leave willingly, we'll force her out. I've already consulted a lawyer about eviction procedures. Don't be weak about this." This changed everything. It was no longer just about the house. It was about saving my father from the financial guillotine she had placed over his neck. I called Mr. Anderson immediately. "I found something," I told him. "She's destroyed his credit. She's forged his signature on loans. This isn't just about me anymore." "Olivia," he said carefully, "what you're describing is financial fraud, identity theft. These are criminal matters. If you have proof, your father needs to know, today." "Not yet," I said. "I need to wait for the right moment. She's about to make her final move. I can feel it." "How do you know?" "Because she's desperate, and desperate people make mistakes." I was right. The final ultimatum came 3 days later. It arrived via text message, buzzing on my nightstand like a trapped hornet at 11:47 p.m. "Last chance, Olivia. I want last month's $700 plus this month's and a $200 late fee. That's $1,600 in cash on my kitchen counter by 9 a.m. tomorrow, or I'm calling a locksmith and your junk will be on the curb. Don't test me." I smiled in the darkness of my room. The test was over. She had failed spectacularly. I texted back a single word, "Okay." Then I called Mr. Anderson, despite the late hour. "It's happening tomorrow," I told him. "Can you be on standby?" "I'll be in my office at 8 a.m. Do you want me there?" "No, this is something I need to do myself, but I might need you right after." "Olivia," he said, his voice gentle, "are you sure about this? Once you do this, there's no going back. Your relationship with your father might never recover." I thought about Grandpa, about his letter, about his final words. "Protect what's yours, Livy, and protect your father from himself." "If I don't do this," I said, "there won't be a relationship worth saving anyway. She's going to destroy him. I'm just speeding up the inevitable and maybe, giving him a chance to wake up before it's too late." I didn't sleep that night. I went through every piece of evidence, organized every file, rehearsed every word. By dawn, I was ready. The next morning, the air was electric. At 8:55 a.m., I walked downstairs. Joyce was standing by the counter, arms crossed, a smug, victorious look on her face. My father was there too, looking miserable. And to my surprise, a burly man holding a toolbox stood by the front door. The locksmith. She had actually done it. Well, Joyce snapped. Time's up, where's my money? I didn't look at the counter, I looked directly at her. I have a question for you first, I said, my voice steady and clear. Did you happen to check the deed lately? Her smug expression flickered. What are you talking about? This is my house, now pay up. No, I said, taking a step forward. It's not. From my bag, I pulled out the leather-bound folder. I didn't hand it to her. I handed it to my father. He opened it, his hands shaking. His eyes scanned the first page, the official deed of ownership with my name, Olivia Taylor, listed as the sole proprietor of the trust. His face went pale. Dad, I said softly, Grandpa transferred this house to me 6 months before he died. The day after your wedding, actually. He knew this would happen. What is this? Joyce demanded, snatching the papers from him. Her eyes darted across the legal text, her confident facade crumbling with every word. No, this is impossible. This is a fake. You forged these. They're notarized and filed with the county, I said calmly. You can call and verify if you'd like. I'll wait. Oh, it gets worse, I said, pulling out my phone. I hit play on the first video. The audio was crystal clear. Joyce's voice filled the room, demanding cash, threatening eviction. Then the next video, and the next. 6 months of illegal extortion played back for all to hear. That's $4,200 you've taken from me under false pretenses, I stated calmly. That's a crime, Joyce. It's called fraud. Extortion, actually. And I have every transaction documented, time-stamped, and backed up in 3 separate locations. She looked wildly from me to my father. Stephen, are you going to let her do this? She's lying, she's manipulating you. My dad looked at the papers, then at her, then at me. For the first time in years, the fog seemed to clear from his eyes. You told me this house was ours. You said your name was on everything. It should have been, I'm your wife. We're married, what's his should be ours. That's not how inheritance works, I said. And speaking of inheritance, Dad, there's something else you should know. I pulled out the second document from the folder, the poison pill clause from Grandpa's will. I explained everything, slowly and clearly. The $800,000 in stocks and bonds, the clause that would void it all if he allowed me to be forced out, the test that Grandpa had designed. He wanted to protect me, Dad, but he also wanted to protect you. From this. I gestured to Joyce, who was now packing the kitchen like a caged animal. And since we're sharing information, you should probably also know about the 6 credit cards she opened in your name, the $45,000 in debt, the pyramid scheme, the forged loan applications. I pulled out my phone again and showed him the photos, every screenshot, every piece of evidence of financial fraud. His face went from pale to gray. No, he whispered. No, that's not, Joyce. She stopped packing. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. She'd been cornered, and she knew it. I was going to tell you, she finally said, her voice small. I was going to fix it. That's why I needed the rental income. Rental income from a house you don't own, I interrupted. Using money you extorted from me under false pretenses, while you destroyed Dad's credit and forged his signature on loans. Do you understand that this is a felony? Multiple felonies. The color drained completely from Joyce's face. In a single moment, she saw it all evaporate. The house, the money, the control. She had overplayed her hand and lost the entire kingdom. My father sank into a chair, his head in his hands. The locksmith, realizing he had walked into the middle of a war zone, quietly packed his tools and slipped out the front door. There was a long, horrible silence. Then my father spoke, his voice hollow. How long have you known about the house? Since the day after Grandpa died. He gave me specific instructions. And you let this happen. I let her show you who she really is, Dad. Because if I'd told you on day 1, you wouldn't have believed me. You would have thought I was the manipulative one. You needed to see it for yourself. Grandpa knew that. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something break behind his eyes. Shame, realization, grief. I'm sorry, he whispered. Livy, I'm so sorry. I should have protected you. After your mom died, I should have been there, and instead It's okay, Dad. It's not okay. Nothing about this is okay. He turned to Joyce and his voice went cold. Get out. Stephen. Get out, pack your things. I want you gone by tonight. You can't kick me out. I'm your wife. We'll work through this. We're done, he said, and there was a finality in his voice I'd never heard before. I'll be filing for divorce tomorrow, and depending on what the police say about the fraud charges, you might want to get yourself a lawyer. I looked at Joyce, this woman who had made my life a living nightmare, now standing defeated in my kitchen. I didn't feel rage. I felt nothing but pity. I walked over to the counter and slid a new, freshly printed piece of paper toward her. It wasn't a rent demand. It was a 30-day eviction notice. You wanted to run this house like a business, I said, my voice soft but unbreakable. Fine, your tenancy is officially terminated. I'm giving you 30 days. It's more grace than you ever gave me. She stared at the paper, then at me, her mouth opening and closing with no sound coming out. Then something in her snapped. She grabbed her purse from the counter and stormed toward the door, but not before turning back one last time. You think you've won? She hissed. You're just a spoiled little girl playing house with her dead grandfather's money. You'll never be able to hold on to this place. You'll fail, and when you do, don't come crying to your father. I won't need to, I said quietly. Because unlike you, I'm not trying to take something that isn't mine. I'm just protecting what is. She slammed the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. The queen had been deposed. Her castle was nothing more than a pile of sand. And I was no longer the grieving, vulnerable girl she thought she could bully. I was the owner, the landlord. I was my grandfather's legacy, and checkout time had finally arrived. The next few weeks were complicated. Dad moved into a hotel while he sorted out the legal mess of his marriage. Joyce moved in with one of her friends from the pyramid scheme, still posting on social media about temporary setbacks and entrepreneurial journeys. The irony was lost on no one. Mr. Anderson helped Dad untangle the financial fraud. It turned out to be even worse than we thought. Joyce had also taken out a car loan and a personal line of credit using his information. The police got involved. Charges were filed. Dad's credit was destroyed, but at least now he could start rebuilding it honestly. One evening, about 3 weeks after the showdown, Dad came back to the house. His house, technically, until the divorce was finalized, but we both knew whose home it really was. Can we talk? He asked, standing awkwardly in the doorway like a stranger. Of course, Dad, come in. We sat in the living room, in the same spots where Grandpa and I used to sit and talk. The silence was heavy but not hostile. I've been going to therapy, he said finally, trying to understand how I let things get so bad, how I failed you so completely. Dad. No, let me finish. After your mom died, I was so lost. And when Joyce came along, she seemed so confident, so sure of everything. I thought she'd be the one to pull me out of the darkness. Instead, she pulled me deeper into a different kind of darkness. And I let her, because it was easier than facing my grief. He looked at me, his eyes wet. Your grandfather tried to warn me. You tried to warn me, but I didn't listen. And I almost lost you because of it. You didn't lose me, Dad. I'm right here. But I could have. If it wasn't for your grandfather's wisdom, if you hadn't been brave enough to stand up to her, I would have let her push you out of your own home. What kind of father does that? The kind who was manipulated by someone very skilled at manipulation, I said gently. Joyce is a predator, Dad. She found you when you were vulnerable and she exploited that. But you're not responsible for her actions. You're only responsible for what you do now. He nodded slowly. I want to be better. I want to be the father you deserved all along. The one who protects you, not the one you have to protect yourself from. Then be that father, I said, starting today. We talked for hours that night. Really talked, for the first time in years. He told me about his grief over Mom, about the crushing loneliness that made him vulnerable to Joyce's charms. I told him about the pain of watching him disappear into someone else's control, about the nights I cried myself to sleep feeling abandoned. It wasn't easy, but it was honest, and it was a start. 6 months later, the house feels like home again. Dad lives in a modest apartment downtown now, his choice. I need to prove to myself that I can stand on my own, he told me, without someone else making my decisions. The divorce was finalized. Joyce tried to claim she was entitled to half of the house's value, but once the fraud charges were laid out, her lawyer advised her to accept the settlement offered. Nothing. She pled guilty to identity theft and fraud, received probation and community service, and last I heard, she moved to another state to start fresh. Dad visits for dinner every Sunday. We cook together, talk about our weeks, sometimes just sit in comfortable silence like Grandpa and I used to do. He's dating someone new, a kind, quiet woman who works as a teacher and has no interest in his finances or his property. They take it slow, and I approve. As for me, I'm still in grad school, still working at the library, still living in Grandpa's house. My house. I've made changes, painted some rooms, updated the kitchen, planted a garden in the backyard. But I kept Grandpa's study exactly as he left it, pipe tobacco smell and all. Sometimes I sit in his chair and thumb through his old books. And I swear I can feel him there, proud of me for standing my ground. The leather folder sits in my desk drawer now, next to his letter. I don't need to look at them anymore, but I keep them close. A reminder that love isn't just soft words and warm hugs. Sometimes love is teaching someone to fight. Sometimes it's giving them the weapons they need to protect themselves. Sometimes it's building a fortress around them so strong that no predator can break through. Grandpa gave me more than a house. He gave me power, agency, and the wisdom to use them properly. He taught me that justice doesn't have to be loud or cruel. It can be quiet, precise, and devastating. And most importantly, he taught me that home isn't just a building. It's a legacy. It's the stories in the walls, the memories in every room, the love that gets passed down through generations. Joyce tried to turn that into a commodity, into rental income and profit margins. But she forgot something important. You can't put a price on what's truly valuable, and you can't steal what was never yours to take. The house still smells like pipe tobacco and old books, and now, finally, it's at peace.